let's get the party started. I want to give some kind of quick introductions, and let's get to the content, give the people what they want. So we have two Davids on the call today. I'll be calling one Young Blood and then David G, I guess the other. So let me know if you if you two have nicknames or anything like that.
That
But
works.
David Youngblood is the he's a senior sales and partner manager at Outplay. He does some work as an ambassador at Rev Genius, and he likes to say that when he's not prospecting, selling, or outplaying, he can be found hanging out with his family or creating in his workshop as a wood crafting artisan. Now I know that you throw
Throwing
axes. Like, it
axes,
just
right?
all this makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
Uh, David G, I know that like you're the director of sales and business development at Outplay. I don't have as detailed of a bio on you, so maybe just like what's something interesting about you, and then
It's
we'll
okay.
dig into that.
I'm here to share. I am a family guy with three beautiful daughters and four grandchildren that I am absolutely crazy about. They're my
Awesome.
number one passion, but my number two passion is this right here, helping folks double their reply rates. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, you bet. And if I could comment, David G, you look pretty good for a grandpa, man. You look pretty young for a
Thank
grandpa.
you. Thank you. Yes. And I don't dye my beard
Second.
yet, but it's coming soon, I think. That just
Yeah.
goes to show you, I come from old school sales, right? And I've been doing
Yeah.
this a long time. And the amazing thing today is to bring all these best practices that I've been doing for years to technology. And the combination is a real winner.
Yeah. So let's get kind of straight to it here. In terms of doubling your reply rates, it's a pretty big promise, I think for a webinar. But in my experience, especially with the reps and the customers that I work with, it's so much more doable than people actually think it is. And that might be a good question to kind of get started. And David G, I'll direct this to you. When it comes to cutting through the noise, what does it take right now, especially email? It's a really just cluttered channel. What does it take to cut through the noise these days with email? Maybe give some context too into how many emails you guys see going through the system at Outplay too. I mean, you guys have a ton of data points here, but what does it take to cut through the noise these days?
Yeah, that's crazy. Great question. We are sending thousands of emails just on our own team, let alone we have hundreds of customers also doing the same. So we learn, right? And that's really the main point of A/B testing, right? Always be testing. Some people say always be closing. I say always be testing. So always work to improve your email reply rates. Change that subject line, change that call to action rate, but that's not really why we're here. We're really here to talk about personalization and cutting through the noise. I mean, look, I I don't respond to cold emails. Not gonna lie, I do answer cold calls. I'm not lying about that either. So if you call
Oh,
me,
okay.
you'll probably get me to answer. But just have a good intro. All right. But on cold emails, I really don't answer cold emails. If it says, "Hi, David Glickman, comma, I'm reaching out because we have many connections," this kind of stuff doesn't work. Maybe it did 10 years ago, but it certainly doesn't work today. I need to see that, was it worth your time? Did you learn about me? Do you know who I am, what I'm about, or am I one in a million that you're reaching out to? So for me, what that means to cut through the noise is to show that it was worth my time to research you, learn about you, and show you some value in the communication, right? Bring some real value to the
Yeah.
conversation.
So Youngblood, what is personalization then? Because there's a lot of, I don't know if I want to call it hype, but especially on LinkedIn, you see a lot of like, oh, is it personalized versus is it relevant versus customized? There's all these terms, kind of thrown around. So
Yeah.
Youngblood, how do you think of personalization? What does it mean to actually personalize an
Well,
email?
I think to personalize really kind of goes back to, the cutting through the noise. How do you differentiate? And you can differentiate by your messaging, right? By your approach and how you're communicating to your target audience. We've all seen the gimmicks, the tricks and the tchotchkes out there that format and automate some of the communication and correspondence for us, which also makes our jobs easier. However, what happens is when you're doing the same thing everyone else is doing, you become part of the noise again. So personalization is really about, taking that extra step, that extra human moment to find out more about that other human being, and then inject some of that personalization into your communication, correspondence, and outreach efforts.
So for someone that's thinking, and let me know if you relate to this in the chat too. Maybe just put me too in the chat. I relate with this. A lot of what I hear is that, well, are you saying that I got to customize every email that I send out? Because that's going to take a long time. I got a lot of other stuff that I need to do. So how would you guys kind of respond, to that if someone's thinking about weighing the pros and cons of the amount of time investment that it's going to take to do this versus using something like Outplay to just batch and blast hundreds of emails out to people? How should someone, think of that? What do you guys? I'll just kind of open that question up for you too.
It's a loaded question, isn't it, Youngblood?
A little bit, yeah. It's full package.
One of the first things I do with a new client that we're partnering with is get to know the kind of client they are, right? Who are they selling to? How many
Mhm.
clients should they be reaching out to on a daily, weekly basis to hit their targets? And then we start to back into how much of it should be personalized. And quite frankly, we do a whole range of different types of sequences. And it starts with things like situational sequences where we
Yeah.
learn something about them, all the way to a fully templatized sequence that everybody's getting the same exact message, and there is a reason for each of those, I think, and everything in between.
Yeah, I think to kind of to piggyback on that a little bit, it's understanding how to identify and see the patterns in your outreach efforts, right? In your target audience and your messaging, understanding that you need a good baseline of a variety of sequence templates to start from, making sure that you're leveraging triggers and automations. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people tend to make is understanding when and when not to automate, right? It's not about automating everything. If you do automate everything, you tend to lose some of that personalization. So it's not really personalization at scale just because you put a first name in the subject line. That's not called personalization. So then also maintaining that balance, right? Understanding that over personalization isn't going to necessarily lead to better results. So you got to find the right line of personalization that's right for you and your target audience and the people you're speaking to.
Okay. There's so much to unpack here. I love what's going on in the chat so far. So you guys,
Right.
Cole and Mayank and Emily and Dalia and Craig, we see you in the chat.
It's not easy to
Okay, before we,
personalize.
yeah, it's not easy to personalize. Before we really get into the weeds here, what we're going to do, everyone, here in a second, is we're going to go through different types of sequences, and these guys have some examples they're going to show us too of like what this looks like in action. And before we do that, what I want to do is just like if you have specific questions, if you could use the Q&A button. So at the bottom of Zoom there, click Q&A. That'll help us filter out the questions from the chat so that I don't miss any of them. So if you have questions, we want to help you answer them. Put it into the Q&A button there in Zoom, and we'll get to you. So let's just like rewind a bit here, young blood. You
Yeah,
said a bunch of things there. You said
sorry.
pattern detection,
Hmm.
because I think that people think about personalization and it's like, okay, I got to completely write something from scratch for this person every single time. And you mentioned pattern detection. Can you unpack that a little bit more? What do you mean by looking for patterns in the people that we're reaching out to?
Yeah, so patterns as it pertains to prospecting, a lot of it is, the themes of things that we know, like your ICP, right? Who's your target audience, your ideal customer profile, and your addressable market. So you know that the look and feel of companies and problems that you tend to solve for, you can find those common threads and use that as a piece or a part of the template, right? And same for targeting titles and roles and responsibility owners. So you can tailor and title messaging to cater and tailor to select egos or roles and responsibility types, right? So those supplemental bullets in your messaging might be tailored or catered specifically to a role of a CXO versus a CTO versus a
Yeah.
VP of operations, et cetera.
Yes. Okay. I think one thing that could help us in the chat, you guys, is if you could share what are some job titles of people that you sell to? Hit us up in the chat. What are some job titles of the people that you sell to? That'll help us provide some context actually for you today. So what I'm hearing from young blood there is that, and I see something very similar too, where what are the patterns across the different personas? So I think segmentation is actually Like before you even write an email, create a template, run a sequence, make a phone call, what I'm hearing is that segmentation is really important. So how do you
Absolutely.
guys, David G, if we could focus on you for a second, when you think of segmentation, how do you think about like what are some typical patterns that either you guys use or some of your customers use? Like how do they segment stuff? And this is great in the chat. You guys keep it coming. How do you guys segment? How do you think about segmentation?
Yeah, definitely. We see a lot of folks that are segmenting by title, right? CEOs, CFOs, they usually need different messaging than, that front end user or even that frontline manager. So we're, every I think customer that we have has different indications, different clues that they're looking for. Sometimes it's just on a persona based, and there are tools that help you, look at discover people's personas as well. So there's lots of different ways by vertical, right? You can separate your audience by what type of business they're in and how they sell. Now at Outplay, we've decided to go after people. We look for 6 or 7 really specific things. So we're not just going out there, randomly researching. We've asked our team to look for these situations where it's a good indication that the timing might be right. And then we have sequences written for those situations. So we call these, no surprise here, situational sequences, right? Because they can be templatized, they can be pre-written, and you can drop these folks into the sequences and it'll feel personalized, right? So you can have a CFO sequence that it feels written just to him, right? That message is written just for the
Yeah.
CFO. But you can also find people, that are using a competitor's tool. That's a great one that we utilize with very specific
Okay.
messaging on that.
Here, I want to share. I'm just taking some notes on something right now. I think that actually might help here. And I shared the wrong thing. Here we go. So if we could run through what I want to do is help kind of brainstorm for the folks at home here, like different kinds of situations. So basically, with pattern detection, we can segment by title, by vertical. You also said that there's some other ways that we can think about segmenting too, based on if the timing is good. Can you unpack that a little bit more? I want to help everyone here that's watching this think a little bit deeper than the title and vertical because you dropped some good stuff there. So what are some other situational type of things that might come up?
Yeah, absolutely. Timing wise, we see some real patterns around when is the right time for this type of organization to buy our tool, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And we've found a couple of patterns here. One of them is if you're a new sales leader, if you're new to that leading role, right? Usually you want to come in, you want to find the gaps, you want to fix the tools and get the team pumped up and get ready to scale. So we specifically are looking for people that are new to the sales leader role. That's a great time to hit on them. And we've got some very specific messaging just for that audience. And it's not just congrats on the new role, because then the message goes into, why the timing is right, why we have value right now for you, right? But there
Yeah.
are other timings too. If you just raised money, that's one of the perfect times, right? Got money to burn, just got that Series A, Series B, we know what that's about. So you're out there looking for new tools. It's time to scale, and the timing is right to find the right tech stack. So we've, as a team, as an organization, in our playbook, we've sketched out these specific things that we want our team to go after. And they're all business related, right? We can all tie it to what we're adding value for, how we're selling. So it's not so random. And it doesn't take a lot of time because our team knows exactly what to look for. But our clients are all different. Some of them use Facebook to find when the timing is right. Some of them are using tools like Built With on their website to find out when the timing is right. Doing technographic searches, there's tons of great tools today that are giving you those insights, but it's up to your organization to identify it and make it clear to your team so that it's easy and efficient. Yeah.
Yeah. Youngblood, what about you? Are you seeing anything else? Like we
Yeah,
saw Jacob threw into the chat too, new product, facility, service. Like any signs of expansion, I think is really good. But Youngblood, Any other
Yeah,
kind of
Product
timing
launch. Yeah.
related
my
things?
yeah, my brain kind of goes to like firmographics or fundamentals on due diligence and research on a target account, right? As a prospector, I'm going to go research an account and or prospects and try and find these circumstantial event related timing indicators. But the other approach to this, as far as understanding and finding the right timing, from an automation perspective, is making sure, and this is more advanced, but making sure that your dispositions and utilization of your tech stack and process is such that you're able to capture kind of the last gone cold or dark silent date, and you're able to do something called what's referred to as commonly as account-based prospecting, right? We're able to recycle and nurture accounts or reinvigorate accounts that maybe went dark or silent after a defined period of time. So you can create automations and tools, like Outplay, to say, okay, and create a task in 3 months, follow up and add this account back to a net new account, right? So things like that.
Yeah, so kind of like reworking
Yeah,
old accounts too. I think that's a hugely underrated thing because especially when you start to move into mid-market and enterprise where the deal size is much bigger and there's much more research involved,
right.
and you might have spent an hour on the enterprise level just doing account research and that doesn't have to all go to waste.
Correct.
A lot of those things are still going to apply. Let me stop sharing this. What
And
I'd love
great
to
comment from
hear.
Sri. Oh, sorry, great comment from Sri. Yeah, teams expanding is another great one we use. Team growth. Thanks for adding that to the whiteboard. That's great.
I'd love to hear, and again, if we kind of zoom out a little bit, the reason why we want to like layer down into pattern detection is that I don't know what you guys see. Most of sequencing, I see one of two situations usually with a rep or company is they have one sequence where they put all the personas in. So everyone gets the same sequence, or they'll have a sequence separated out by persona, and they don't have any other sequences besides that. Yeah, the last thing added, Emily, was reworking old accounts. So
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I see, like, there's like you should have like a dozen and a half sequences because you find timing and situations that are relevant enough to where every time I find someone that's in a new role within the 12 months, I have this go-to sequence that like does 99% of the work for me already because I've already thought about how to message these people. That's the point I just want to like just nail there with you guys and beat a bit of a dead horse over is that like you're doing a lot of this work in advance so that you don't have to do it every time it comes up, right? Is that kind of the point here and like looking at those patterns?
Yeah, time efficiency, right? Always be testing, always be improving, increase your efficiency.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're going after, a high volume of accounts or you want to really hyper personalize a lower volume of accounts. Let's face it, we want to spend less time sending emails, more time closing deals, building our network. So anything that we can do to optimize this process is critical. That's what sales engagement is all about. Automating it, making it easy. The very first thing that our team does, and we've got brilliant SDRs like Sri One there. Thank you for your notes. We've got brilliant SDRs that have helped to really perfect some great processes. And SCP tools are all great. I saw somebody ask, can we succeed without SCP and all that other stuff? You know what? SCP is just here to make your world a lot easier, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, the very first thing that we do, and you can do this manually or with SCP, is we research. Day one, first thing we do, research, and we're looking for those specific points. And we'll just make a note of that point, whether you put it in your SCP like Outplay or if you're putting it in your spreadsheet. When I call you, Jason, I want to be able to have a relevant conversation with you, right? I want to remember what I researched 2 weeks ago because it's taken me this long to finally get you on the phone. I want to include those points in the emails coming up. So we do the heavy lifting on day one, do the research, take good notes, use the advantages that your database, your CRM, SAP has to offer to resurface that information right when you need it to further personalize the connection request, the phone call, the email, everything, text messaging,
That's a
chats.
Yeah. I want to double click on that too because that's another thing that I see a lot too where people do the same research over and over and over again.
Oh yeah.
Do the research one time, save your notes in that sales engagement tool or your CRM or a spreadsheet, whatever you're using. I don't want to have to redo account research, put it all into one place. Before we get to kind of the some of the examples and stuff that you guys are going to show, can you guys let us know in the chat what is one situation that you find a lot of your prospects are in that you could create a more repeatable sequence around? And then we'll get into some examples of how long the sequence should be, how many touches. You guys are asking some great questions there. But let me know in the chat, based on what you've heard so far, what is one pattern that's very common that you see prospects in that you could create a sequence for after this webinar? Yeah, Jim says acquisitions. Yeah, lead
Hmm.
time issues, Michael says.
There's so many, and everybody's business is going to be different. I would love to just give you a silver bullet right here, but I don't know if that's possible. I know we've got multiple bullets it takes, for
Yep.
targeting different groups of audiences. I'm sure all these folks do. Yeah, look, they've all got great ideas. Absolutely.
Yeah, these are great. So think about the patterns that you detect. And again, it's do the work one time, create this sequence so you don't have to recreate this over and over again. Yeah, appointment setting, account reviews, awesome. Okay. Why don't we get into some of the examples and just to kind of preface this, you guys you guys look at sequences in a very different way than I've seen other people talk about it. It's not just a sequence, there are different types of sequences, and you sort of alluded to this earlier. So, can you kind of give us the 10,000-foot view of how you guys look at sequences and the different types of outbound sequences that we should have?
Yeah, go ahead, DG.
So, we definitely use a variety of sequences. And, I've mentioned testing and YB did as well, because it's so important to always be testing and trying new things, seeing what can work. There isn't a silver bullet, right? Everybody's business is different. But for us, we've found that there are several kind of standard type of sequences that we build. And as we partner with new customers, we learn about your business so that we understand, how you sell and why you sell that way so that we can help you develop these same types of sequences, because they're not going to be exactly the same as ours, but you will be able to draw the connection, right? The similarities. So, we talked briefly about a situational type sequence, right? So this is a sequence where you can add, thousands of prospects in the same situation, right? And they all feel like they're getting that personalized message. And we talked about many of them, and a lot of you are using them, which is great to see. And this is one way that we help our customers to expand the way that they're thinking about sequences, is by use case, by the value that you bring to this group of customer, right? And so the value that we bring to someone, for instance, hiring a sales team, right? Hey, our tool is perfect for helping your new folks ramp up quickly and start booking meetings in days and not weeks, right? So it's situational, it's personal, it's based on research, and I can use it in the email, the phone call, the connection request, the text message, and all of that, right? So there's a great example of situational sequences. But the opposite end of that is what I call a high personalization sequence. And this is where we're going to take a little bit more time, slow it down. And usually this is for upmarket accounts. So getting higher account values, contract values, and we want to spend more time personalizing and learn more about you. And we have a sequence called this high personal, it's literally called high personalization. And whenever we see at that high value target, we drop them in there, and it's literally our best outbound cold sequence. And it just expands on what we talked about, right? Do that research up front, take a note of 3 things that we can learn about you, and resurface those points in the communication, all 3. And it just makes it more powerful, more value to add, better messaging, and much better reply rates that I'll share with you all. And then, we also do some sequences one-on-one. for instance, we might just find somebody on LinkedIn and we want to drop them into a sequence and do the research another time, right? So tomorrow, when I'm working my sequences, up pops this task to research Jason Bay. And I'm going to go to your LinkedIn account and I'm going to research you and I'm going to make some points and I'm just going to personally write an email to you at that time. And that first email is ever important. But if you can also begin to personalize the third email and sprinkle that in, now you're really winning. Now you're going to see much improved reply rates. I'm curious if you guys can add what kind of reply rates you think are common in your sequences. Yeah.
Yeah, let us know in the chat. What kind of reply rates do you typically see? And then we'll kind of pull back the curtain. Youngblood, do you have some examples ready that we can look at here in a second?
Of these types of various sequences. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So we're seeing 5 to 10%. John says low. What's going on, John?
If you want me
7
to, I
to
can.
14%.
Yeah. Go ahead.
1, 3, 2 to 8. Someone said
Yeah.
0%.
2 to 8. What? 14%. Wow, that's a nice one. Yeah, that's as high as a cold outbound sequence can get, right? Yeah.
Yeah, good
Nice.
stuff. Yeah, whenever
Well,
you guys are ready, let's take a look at some examples.
all right, I'm going to share some sequences with you and look at really some of the results that we're seeing across these sequences. Let me share my screen here. So here are some of my favorite sequences, and you can see they have some crazy high reply rates as well. And I'll explain a couple of these to you, right? This is actually one of those situational sequences down here, right? All these companies, we found them on Crunchbase. They just got their Series A. It's easy to write a message, right? Hey, Jason, I've been following you on Crunchbase. Congrats on getting your Series A. I'm curious, is it time to beef up the tech stack and scale the sales team? Right? It probably is. So timing, right? There you go. And look at that, 11%, very consistent, and it's one of our top sequences. Um, and then we have this, well, I mentioned this also, high personalization. Somebody said they were getting 14%. Congrats, because this is our best outbound cold sequence, also at 14% reply rate, right? And that's where we're literally writing 3 things about each prospect that goes into that sequence and sprinkling the information throughout the phone call, the email, and all that. And sure, we do a technographic search on competitors. I want to see what you're using, and I can talk to you about the differences between us and them. That's always fun. No, none of you in the audience though have competitors, right? No, you don't know anything about that. So, but then we have some special sequences also. I call them tier 2 sequences or dynamic sequences. These are sequences that, yeah, you may start over here where you recently got funded. So we started reaching out to you that way. But then maybe you booked a meeting with us, we hope, right? And the system will actually move you automatically into a new sequence called meeting booked. And you can do this manually on your own. You can, just manually send out emails with different templates. But I think recognizing where they are in their buyer's journey, right? Are they engaged with you? Are they even opening your emails? Is the timing right? These are things to constantly revisit. So meeting booked is a great sequence because it kicks off an event for the AE, right? So maybe we'll connect with them on LinkedIn or whatever, but it's also doing maybe a nurture campaign to the prospect until that meeting actually happens. Now, heaven forbid somebody missed a meeting. Nobody ever misses a meeting on you all, I know. That's just me. But we have a way of managing these missed meetings, and our system can actually move the prospect into a new sequence called missed meeting. And it's all about, hey, I know it happens. Let's get back on the call. Here's a little value add to remind you of why we wanted to meet in the first place, and that personalization again, and good to go. And look at that reply rate, 25%. And actually, we wind up booking half of our missed meetings again, so it works out pretty well. But this is one of my favorites right here, okay? 4 open sequences. So Outplay is always helping you to identify the low-hanging fruit. And there are lots of tools that can help you do this. We focus on pointing out not just when somebody opens the email a bunch of times or clicks on something or even visits your website, but we also will trigger an alert for the sales rep. So yeah, data's great, but hey, sales rep, they just visited our website. Let's call them, right? That's actionable and that's a hot lead. So there you go.
This is
Look,
great.
look at
Are
that
we able to look at
24% reply rate on that for open sequence.
It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Are we able to look at any of these closer to just like people are wanting to know the number of touches in the sequence or an example of what stuff might looks like? Are you guys able to do that at all?
So typically a sequence is, over 3 weeks. And we're doing about 5 to 6 emails in that period. And 5 phone calls because we're a phone call shop. We like to make a lot of phone calls. We book about half of our meetings by phone, by the way. And a tool like Outplay, there's lots of dollars out there that can just help you move from one call to the next. Will help you hit your target for calls. And then we're also, including LinkedIn. So we're doing at least 3 LinkedIn steps to research and learn about you, to do a connection request, and some follow-up as well. Yeah, let's take a look into this high personalization sequence. So the very first step is just like I mentioned, right? It's that research step. We ask all of our SDRs, the very first thing you want to do with a high value target is make a note of 3 points of personalization, right? So, and store that information so we can resurface it. And we even give our team examples to make it really easy to, click those creative juices into high gear. And we do this on day one. It's a critical step. It's a priority for our team because, if you don't build the pipe, you're not going to close deals. Every day we have to add to the pipe. That's critical. All right. But then the second step, and you can see we do A/B testing all day. Some people say, always be closing. Not me. I said this earlier, I know. I say always be testing. Always be testing. And look at we're able to drive, big improvements in emails, in reply rates. And then we're sprinkling, these custom, these fields here that are storing that personalized information, right? So what I learned about you, here's a quick, short 3 to 5 word subject line. Here it is in a sentence. I love that post you shared about new sales, from a virtual world, right? I shared it with my team. And then value, right? But also in the phone
Uh,
call.
Can we go
Sorry.
back to that real quick? Because you mentioned some things around personalization, and I just want to point out here that the subject line is personalized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just like a first name merge
Right
tag,
now.
something else in there to personalize it. Can you talk about why you do that?
Right. I mean, look, when you get an email, where are you usually? On your phone, right?
Yeah.
So the subject line has got to help you stand out. And you can get really cute and creative and use emoticons. And listen, a lot of those things work. This is the way that we do it. We do it through personalization by starting with why we should be talking. What did I learn about you? And of course, the first name, that's kind of personalization, right? It's kind of expected these days, but trust me when I tell you that what we've seen is that consistently subject lines with first names and that have 3 to 5 words in it will outperform. That's not for everybody though. So always test, try it on your own, and hopefully you have a tool like Outplay that lets you do a quick A/B test and then measure the difference in results. Right?
Yeah, I think that's so important, that level of personalization that you're talking about with the subject line. I just have to again double click on that because that's the most people, actually, why don't we ask this question too? What is the typical open rate for you guys? If you could drop it into the chat. A lot of you guys shared reply rates, some of you shared open rates. What's a typical open rate? Because in my experience, a lot of teams are getting like 20 to 30% open rates. And it's just like almost 3/4 of your emails are not even being looked at. is the first line of the email is not great, and the subject line, is not customized. But yeah, we have 10%, 30%, yeah, 20 to 60. Yeah, so
That's
it's
a
kind of
great starting point. It's okay to start at 20, but you have to always be working towards improving it. And it really only takes weeks. Actually, I'll share another best practice with you because I see this go wrong often. A lot of customers that we work with initially have, way too many ideas of how many sequences they're going to have. They've got a team of maybe, 10 sales reps, and they all want to go out and write, 3 or 4 sequences on their own. But you can imagine how hard it is to learn, right, from that data. What worked, why did it work, and to whom did it work when you're reaching out to them, right? So we focus on team sequences, team templates, where we can have, the team focus on fewer sequences at a time to get more data in so that we can learn quickly. Because, let's face it, a sample size of 10, 20, there's zero learning. I hope all of you don't learn anything from a sample size of 10 or 20. I look for a sample size of minimum 50, looking for 200 though, really, to make it solid. I like a sample size of 200. But at the same time, our team, we're a group of smart, ambitious, passionate folks, and we like to spread our wings and be creative. So, we do take turns on writing sequences and rewriting sequences and improving them. And it allows the team to all get involved and participate in the creative side of things, but also to work as a team with a consistent message.
so that's great. We got a couple questions in the Q&A I think that are relevant to what we're talking about right now. Um, okay, Indica asks, is all personalization business related?
No, no. Short answer, easy answer, no.
Man. Well, why? Because some people are afraid of, I think, being unprofessional.
Don't get
Is
creepy,
the
right?
issue.
Read the room, find the line. Don't be a creepy stalker, right?
Yeah.
Don't be like, hey, I hope you had a good time at TGI Fridays on Friday with your friend from college. Like that's creepy, right? But on the other hand, it's like, hey, saw that you were, volunteering some time at Habitat for Humanity. That's really freaking awesome, right? Like,
Right, but then stop right there.
yeah,
Don't sell.
exactly.
That is not the time to
Yeah.
pitch,
Prospecting
okay?
isn't selling, selling isn't prospecting. So don't go to the sales mode. Just use the opener, build the rapport, right? Use the personalization and get the meeting.
Have a conversation,
So
folks, right? Build that connection.
is a good rule of thumb that if they talk about it on LinkedIn or share it on LinkedIn, it's probably okay to reference.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
public for a reason. So there you go, Indica.
And
I
don't
think those
fake
are
it,
really
right?
cool.
Like if you're I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I was gonna say, if you're gonna talk about somebody's mascot, have a reason for talking about the
That's
mascot
also true.
at
Yeah.
their
Be
high school,
genuine.
right?
Yeah.
Did you go to that high school? Did you have to at least have the same mascot? I mean, come on, draw a connection. Don't be random.
Yeah. Be genuine for sure.
Okay, Jim's got a quick question too, Jim Dwyer. With that first email, do y'all remove HTML so that it doesn't get caught in a spam filter? And maybe just kind of for some people thinking about should I include a logo or a picture or whatever, that kind of thing. Um, what do you think about Jim's question here? Because
No,
I
I
think
think that
probably
that's a
use it
great
for y'all
question.
too.
Absolutely. And you notice that we don't have any links, no pictures, no nothing in this email. That's a great point, and I'm sure a lot of folks would like to hear that. The first email, the point is really to get through their spam filter and to start to build some familiarity so that they open your email, they see it, but they're not offended by it, right? And therefore, that second email, they're going to be a little bit more open to it, right? Another interesting point in the subject line, another reason for them to open your email. And maybe the next time your email is going to share some thought leadership. And back to a little bit of persona-based messaging that we touched on earlier. This is kind of how I think about email sequences. Personas are really based on a lot of the speed at which they buy, right? What kind of touchy-feely, what kind of information do they need to get before they buy from you? What kind of analysis do they like to do before they buy? So a sequence can actually cover a lot of different personas, right? The first email can be for that fast acting persona that's going to jump in and wants to, I'm a curious guy. I mean, and that's kind of me. I'm curious about technology. If you send me a personalized email that's relevant, I'm curious. I'm going to probably take a look. And then there are folks like probably Youngblood here that like to email and you know, learn, get some back and forth going, get some thought leadership going, and do some analysis on their own, right? So each email that you write in a sequence can actually cover one of those personas.
So, am I right in assuming here in this first email, you don't even have an email signature in there?
We do put an email signature in there, yes. It's
Oh, okay.
inserted by the tool though. So
There's a signature at the end, but you're not putting in a lot of media or links or anything like that.
so signatures are viewed differently than content. So it is okay to have a link back to your website and that sort of thing on that initial email.
Got it. And I ask because email deliverability is such an issue these
Right.
days, where people's emails are just not going through. So, great question.
Yeah, right
Keep
on.
rolling. Don't want to interrupt your flow here. There was just some questions coming up. I think that were
All right,
relevant.
hit me up. I'm going to focus on this screen. You let me know if there's any more good questions. Thanks for that great question. Now, all about moving prospects along their journey, right, to get their timing right. And there are several things that Outplay does, besides knowing when you booked a meeting, knowing when you missed a meeting, right, knowing when you opened for emails. But now check this out. How about knowing when people visit your website? Right? And this is great information. And a lot of marketing tools have this, but this is special. This is called Smart Chat and Magic Chat. And this is all about, again, making it actionable. It's great to know when people visit your website, but these folks are all in a sequence, right? So now we're able to see exactly what their title is, what pages they visited, but most importantly, the sales rep gets an email alert telling them, hey, hot lead alert, jump on it, right? So this is really how we are driving such crazy numbers, is by paying attention to those quiet signals, that aren't so obvious, but can mean a world of difference. 24% reply rate difference. Well,
Yeah. Chat it's something honestly I haven't really explored using much. Um,
yeah,
for
chat's something else, right?
Can you guys talk about this is not the and I won't talk about any of the companies specifically that have these kind of chat tools, just not throw them under the bus, but this is not a when you go to certain websites, you get that annoying pop-up and it's like a chat bot and you're not actually talking to a person. What you guys are doing is like you're able to know if that person is coming to the site and if they're in an outbound sequence, right? And how
Absolutely.
do you talk to the person through chat? Because this is a really, really sort of clever way to talk to people where you've captured their attention. I think that's the hardest thing is getting a conversation started with the person when you have their attention for a few seconds. In chat, it just feels more like a conversation than email does. It feels like I'm texting someone and can have some back and forth, or I'm DMing someone in LinkedIn versus email. It's just so asynchronous. So do you have any tips for chat? Like, what would you want to say to someone when they hop on your when they hop on the site and like what would you say to start a chat with them? What might some of the stuff sound like?
I mean, really the same as your voice conversations, right? It's a live dialogue. It's not asynchronous like email, or as asynchronous as email. It is a little bit, I guess. But just be real, be human, be genuine, and
Personalize.
personalize. But the one of the
Right.
biggest things to take away from live chat via this functionality set is that your prospect was looking at your prospecting email. clicked a link to go to your website to do more research on your solution. And that's how they came across your chat. So like timing, urgency, interest, that couldn't be more relevant than to engage with them with chat, because they're there because they were reading your prospecting email, right? So it's definitely a great tool and relevant time to engage in an open and receptive conversation with your prospect rather than a distant and leave me alone approach.
And
So
it's
would
a
you
hot
say,
lead.
like if I
Mhm.
was prospecting to one of you two and you hopped on to blissfulprospecting.com, would I say, "Hey, David, did you get the email that I sent you?"
Wouldn't even have to ask that. Hey, glad you got the email. Did you have any questions on it?
Oh,
Right?
you're assumptive.
Yeah,
Okay. Glad you got the
Right.
email
absolutely.
that I sent you.
That's right. That's right. Thanks for checking it
I
out.
love
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
You're
And then
not hiding
remember,
any of that kind of stuff.
No, there's no need. Be transparent.
yeah, I think today kind of, I mean, we all kind of expect to be remarketed to and to be tracked on the websites we visit. It's kind of an expectation these days. But yeah, reach out to them. It's just another way to extend the conversation. They are familiar with your name because you've been emailing and calling them and LinkedIn connecting with them. They got your email, they clicked on your email, they visited our website. That's why they pop up on the chat here. And now we can just extend the conversation. And this is, again, it's that low hanging fruit. It's a hot lead. They saw the subject line, they opened it. They saw the content, they clicked. Now they're on your website. Let's see if we can strike up conversation. But to bring up that personalization again is critical. Like, it could be as simple as, hey, Jason, thanks for checking out the email I sent over. And I see that you're growing your sales team. Are you looking for new tools to help your team book new meetings, book more meetings? Right? So relevant conversation, bring in that personalization, and continue the conversation onto chat.
Yeah. So, okay, just because we got about 10 minutes left and I want to make sure to save some time for Q&A, one thing I want to make sure that you guys talk about too is, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys call it dynamic sequencing, where you're kind of personalizing the experience that the prospect has based on how they interact.
Yeah.
So, in other words,
Yeah.
what you're seeing a lot of success with is that if a prospect gets 4 or 5 emails from you, and the first couple, they're opening up a lot and looking at it, even if they're not responding, they're going to now be treated very differently from someone that doesn't open anything that you send them. And I call this, looking for the hand raisers, following the engagement. I think this is the future of outbound, is being able to really prioritize who is just willing to engage with a cold email or a cold call or a LinkedIn message. So can you guys tell us a little bit more about why that's so important?
And we do that with everything, not just outbound. We do the same thing
Yeah.
with inbound, right? We get hundreds of people each month that are, checking us out and maybe signing up for a trial or downloading an ebook or visiting a webinar, right? So now what? Now what? What do we do? Well, now we've got a big group of people that seem like they're the right target audience, right? And we actually do make sure you are, by the way, before we reach out to you. And if there's a need, right? And based on that need, now we can go and we can do it confidently.
Yeah, I love that. And then even choosing to call people too that engage with your emails, I think is a big thing too. It's it this sounds very simple in theory, but I think that if you don't have the right tool to set it up, that can be difficult. But spending the upfront time to like create some of this stuff and create the system, like you do that one time and it becomes pretty simple to maintain. But it does take a little bit of work, I think is the big thing to put this stuff together.
Agreed.
You guys mind if we get to a couple questions
Let's
Yeah.
do it.
here and then we could talk about outplay a little bit more? Okay. All right.
So you want to go through the list, or
Okay,
we?
Some good ones in here. Yeah.
Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Patrick asked, he's got a couple in there, but he said, any recommendation on how many people from a specific company you should address at the same time? How do you guys
Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah. So there's a couple caveats to that, right? Exceptions, which is it depends on your target audience, where you're going at market and what your solution is and who gets the value out of the solution versus who makes the decisions on your solution. So you really need to do the due diligence to make sure that you understand who you're going after and why. But when you do, as a general rule of thumb, to kind of blanket rule it for the audience here and the kids at home, 3 to 5 key players per account is really the kind of the big broad brushstroke best practice, right? 3 to 5. You want to build consensus across a buying committee. If you're an SDR or BDR supporting a sales counterpart, for example, everything you do to canvas that account, canvas prospects in that account, builds brand equity and brand awareness for your organization, so that whether they book a meeting with you today, or if you follow up in 3 months because you recycled the account, they're going to recognize that brand or your name a little bit more. So you really want to do account penetration, account-based prospecting, and canvas that account.
And you got to test, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to test too. Try a new role, try a different title, and see if they can help influence the deal. I think there's a couple of things that I consider when looking at how many people are getting involved in the sale. First of all, is how easy it is to identify the exact decision makers, right? In some cases, you can know. And in some, especially with our marketing customers, marketing is so broad, you never know who's the you know Instagram social media manager that handles influencers, right? So that you're going to have to kind of round up the cats and reach out to them. But the great thing is that salespeople like to help other salespeople, and if you do it right and you ask nicely, you're going to get referrals into the right people. So the more valuable the account, and usually that goes along with larger, not always, but usually, to me means more people involved in the decision-making process. And that also means more people that I want to, start to build that familiarity with and bring in to help book that first meeting.
Yeah, and the other 2 things I would add to that is never be afraid to go top down. Right? Just
Yeah.
because, and referrals are obviously gold. And we all know that. But if you start up in an org and you have a relatively clear value prop that's easy to determine, all right, where to point you, then you can more easily enable your prospects and the leadership of your prospects to better refer you to the right person. And then getting a referral from a peer superior just increases your conversion booking rate to touch points. So it's just doing it smarter and better.
Yes. Love that. I want to make sure that we get a chance to just talk about Outplay real quick. I'm gonna drop a link into here. If you have been watching this and you're thinking, hey, it'd be kind of nice to have a tool to do this, especially with the chat, something that integrates with Salesforce, HubSpot, that sort of stuff. We did put together a pretty cool Black Friday deal for you there. If you visit that link in the chat, you get 20% off if you sign up for before Black Friday. But I'm a huge fan of Outplay simply because it's like you guys make it very easy to do these things. And there's some functionality in there that doesn't quite that isn't quite very easy to do as a rep. Let's put it that way. But check out that link if you're interested. If you're running a team of people and you want to check it out, or you're a rep. Is there anything else that you guys want to mention about Outplay? I mean, this has been a really informative webinar, and I just want to let the folks know if they need a tool that Outplay is a really good one to check out. Is there anything else that you guys want to
Yeah,
mention?
I would just encourage those of you out there, even if you don't necessarily need or want the tool, like we're here, we're in the community, we're in the space, we're solving the same problems, facing them every day. So, hit us up on LinkedIn, hit us up wherever, and happy to have a conversation, just a casual chat about the challenges you're facing, and maybe kind of brainstorm through some of the problems that you have, whether or not you get the tool. Right? We're all in this together. So
Students, right? We're all learning
yeah,
together. We learn from
yep,
you at the same time. It's a great win-win.
definitely.
And also, if you know, whoops, this side, if you check out this logo behind us, it's our new virtual summit, Accelerate. So if you want to check out our first annual virtual conference called Accelerate, Jason's going to be there. Of
Yep.
course, he'll be speaking. Thank you very much, Jason, as well as some other folks from QuotaPath CEO, AJ Bruno, and people from Chili Piper, both their CEO and CXO will be on. Sendoso's going to be there, Chili Piper, lots of great speakers, a lot of great conversations and learning opportunities. So I hope we see you all there. Virtual Summit, December 14th. We'll put a link up.
And 15th.
Oh, there, it's already there. Thank you, Narayan. And
Yep, make
15th.
sure to check it out. Tons of great information. You guys, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you
It
two coming
was,
on,
yes.
spending some time with us. And a lot of takeaways here. I love how specific you guys are with like, hey, how do we find patterns and then create sequences and really kind of give prospects a more customer centric experience through the prospecting process versus just treating them like they're a name on a list.
Yep.
So just love the work you guys are doing. Appreciate you coming on and spending an hour. For everyone else too, love the engagement today. Hopefully you got some good takeaways. Definitely make sure to check out Outplay and the Accelerate event too. It's the Accelerate event's free. You're gonna have a ton of great content there, and we're really gonna crush it for you guys. So thank you, everyone.
There's more
Thank
questions. I
you for
want to answer
sure.
more questions.
I
All right.
know, for real, me too. What are we doing about those?
Well,
Can,
well, how about
Go
how
ahead,
about
buddy.
this? At the end of this, what we could do is if you guys want to, when I send out the replay, reply if you didn't get your question answered. What we could do is I could let you to know I could compile them onto a Google Doc and we could maybe record a short vidyard or drift video or something and help answer some people's questions.
Yeah, and your
perfect.
answer live in response in the chat or comments on your LinkedIn post sharing this video as well.
Yep.
I'm going to also
There you go.
share my email address in here. If anybody wants to reach out directly, please do.
Alrighty, everyone. We'll see you
All
later.
right. Bye,
Have a
everybody.
good one.
Thanks, Chase. Thanks, Dave.